Well, good morning and welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. I want to thank you for joining us. We've got quite a few people here interested in printing. That's our topic for today, how to print your InfoPath forms. We also have a special bonus topic at the end talking about how to use workflows to ask for external approvals, people who are outside of your organization. But first, just a couple quick questions here. First of all, here's our ad, our obligatory ad. We have training coming up at the end of this month. We do training. We try to do it once every month. It's online. It's inexpensive. You get a lot of freebies with it. If you're interested in training, learning about best practices, not just for InfoPath, but also for SharePoint workflows, please join us. If you have taken the training within the last year, you can audit the class for free. So just to put that out there. Okay, so today we're talking about printing, and I wanted to just do a quick poll here to see what you're currently using. And just quick, want to get some ideas here about the audience. So if you can just quickly fill out the poll, we'll get an idea here of what people are using and what the pain point is. I've got two polls actually. Okay, we're at about half of you have voted now, so we're at I'll give you the stats here in a second. We're at 64%. Thank you for playing. 68%. This will help me get an idea of where you're at. 72%, and let's see. We'll give it a few more seconds here. So 72% have voted, and 33% of you don't know. 44% of you use the file print option. 11% are using the PDF software driver like Qdabra, and actually that's now 16%, and 11% of you are using Muhimbi. Great. Let's do one more, and I just want to ask you what your pain point is. And this is obviously why you're here, is because you've got some pain. And I've listed out a couple of the issues that we currently see with InfoPath forms. And the biggest one obviously being pagination. I'm going to talk about that today. Also I'm going to talk about headers and footers, but it looks like 40% of you have voted. I'm going to give it a few more seconds here and see where you're at. Right now, nobody has mentioned, okay, we just have one person saying headers and footers. So we have 64% of you. Let's go a few more seconds here. Looks like that's going to be it. Okay, so 50% pagination, that obviously is the biggie. And 19% the quality of the PDF generated. That's good to see. I'm going to talk about that. And then the rest of you don't know. Wonderful. Thank you for that quick input here. So today's webinar, obviously we're going to talk about pagination. I'm going to show you one really clever trick that we use internally, and we'll see how it works. I'm going to demo that trick. I'm also going to show you how you can force people to print on a button. This is actually from one of our customers has this request. We have quite a few customers who have this request, but recently we've had a request to force the user to print out. We'll show you a technique. We'll show you how to generate PDFs that are better than Muhimbi. For those of you who are frustrated with the PDF quality out there from the Microsoft XPS generator or from Muhimbi, we'll show you a couple techniques that result in superior PDFs. And then I'm going to talk about this external thing. I've got quite a few demos today, so if you have questions, don't forget you can always ask the questions ahead of time, and I'll get to those in about 20 more minutes. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about that pagination trick. So we have forms with repeating data, and the challenge with InfoPath is that it sometimes it doesn't know when to cut off the ends of the page. So let's take a look at an example here. Actually, I'm going to before I actually talk about the pagination trick, I want to show you a form I have open, and I've got a SharePoint site here, and I've published this form for today's webinar, and you can see I've published this form out here, and I've filled it out a little bit. So I just opened the form from here, and I opened it up in the filler. I'll tell you why that is the case in a second here, but right now it's a filler-based form. Could be browser, no big deal, but we're going to do filler because I want to do the printing client side, and I want to show you a couple different ways to print it. So I'm just going to fill out this form. This is actually a form, a form from one of our customers that we've modified to take out all of the incriminating logos and whatnot. But this is an actual real form in production today. This is a form that the field workers use to fill out safety checks on, for example, fire sprinkler systems and things like that. So we're just going to fill out this form really quick, and I'm going to print it and show you a couple different ways that we can print it, just to get our heads around this. So this is obviously requiring that I type, and here select. So we've got this simple form here. You can see it. It is a real form. It is actually in production today, and I'm going to go through here. And one kind of interesting thing about this form is you can see it's long. So right away, obviously, we're going to have a printing issue, perhaps. So I'll just fill this out here, enter some data. We've got some validation checks and whatnot. Now, what I want to show is as I add, I'm going to actually add a bunch of items. I'm going to just so you can see how many rows there are, I'm just going to type in the number. And as you can see, I've got 9 rows here. Now, what happens when I click Insert Page? It's going to insert a new page. And this is kind of going to give you a hint of how to work around that paging. And you can see here that this second section here is even though it's continuous, it is actually a separate repeating section. So we'll just leave that 13 now, and we'll just fill this out, finish filling this out. We're almost done with the form here. Okay, you can see it's a long form. We've got signatures. Obviously, we want the signatures to appear in the footer of the form. So I'm going to assign this, I'll just assign this Z for now. And you can see that automatically adds my signature there. I'm using my mouse to sign it. And of course, I can remove it if I want to make my signature better again. I can, okay, let's see if I can get this here. The Z and this thing in the middle. Okay. And then I can, I need to sign the technician's name. We'll call the technician A. And we'll sign A here. Oops, I made a mistake. And this is hard to do unless you're on a tablet. But there we go. And then finally, you can see the TNC at the bottom. We've copied those signatures down below, and now we can submit the form. Okay, so before I submit the form, let's talk about 2 different ways we can print from the client, and let's show you how to do those. So the first way you can print is you can go to File, Share, and there's this thing called Create PDF XPS. How many of you knew this existed? Okay, so let's do this, and this is going to generate a PDF from Microsoft's built-in functionality. I've got to make sure that people can hear me okay here. Okay, and this is going to generate a PDF. You can see that it's popped up a dialog box here. And it's asking me, well, where do you want to save this thing that we're going to generate for you? I'm just going to throw it in my folder for today's webinar, and we'll call this Demo 2 XPS. And then it's going to launch the PDF viewer, and it's going to show us how bad this looks. Now check this out. This is the out-of-box support for generating a PDF, and it just looks terrible. Data is missing. You can see that I filled out these checkboxes, but they're not showing. Okay, so we don't like that, so let's just ignore that for now. Let me show you one more technique. Now here's the form again. Haven't submitted it yet. I'm going to print this. I'm just going to do Control-P like you would expect. Now I can print it to my local printer, and that's going to give me probably one of the best fidelity outputs, although I'll have to scan it back in. So if I want to generate a PDF, there's another tool out there that's free. It's called QtPDF. Let's try that and see how that works. So QtPDF is installed. You can go to the website. You can Google QtPDF. It's a free install, and very similar to the other technique. It pops up a dialog asking you to save the PDF, and it doesn't open it automatically like XPS does, so I actually have to go in here and open it up and show you what it looks like. But you can see it looks better than the XPS. So for those of you who want a really simple solution for printing and you're not using this today, you can see there's still some artifacts here. There's a double line here at the top, but in general it looks pretty good. And you can see that, now more importantly, look at how it's paginating. So we're paginating those entries that we added. We're adding a pagination at the bottom, continue to the next page, and then the next page has a nice header on it, and the pagination continues, and at the bottom of the page we have the signature, just like we want, and then we have the resolution notes on the next page with the signatures at the bottom of this as well. All right, nice footer action there, and then we have the TNC at the bottom, once again with the signatures there. Okay, so that's how the print's going to happen. Now, of course, before I do the server printing, Let's see how we actually accomplish this. So just to show you what the server would look like for the same document, I'm going to hit submit. What this submit's going to do is it's going to send it to my SharePoint site, and then the SharePoint site is going to synchronize it with a server-side print job that's going to run and send me a PDF within about 30 seconds. It's going to leave the form open, but I'll just close it because I don't need it anymore. But what I want to show you, though, is I want to show you how I actually did that pagination in the form. So here is the form, and let's see, is this the right one? Here's the, no, that's not what I want to show you. That's next up. Okay, that's not it. This must be it. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's the form in the designer, in the InfoPath designer. And first off, when you're printing, what you want to do is you want to specify a print page. The forms are filled out online, either on your mobile device, on the browser, or on a filler. And you want to take advantage of things like hide show, conditional display, conditional formatting. You want to make the forms auto-populate. You want to have richness in your forms. You don't want that to be in the print page. So the print page is typically going to be boilerplate, calculated values. It's not going to have a lot of conditional formatting. Now you can print exactly what they fill in, but to make it look better, you definitely recommend a print page. That's the first takeaway, is you want a print view in addition to your normal view. When you've set up the printing, what you want to do is on the properties for the view that you're filling out, you can specify what the print view is. So underneath print settings, you can say, hey, I want to use the print view, and you can specify things like whether it's portrait or landscape. You can even add headers and footers. I don't recommend this, but you can actually add dynamic text here using this field selector, and it will print that on the header and the footer. The challenge you have is that you don't know how long it's going to be, and it's difficult sometimes with pagination. So we don't typically use these, but I want to point these out because maybe we should be using these. We're not using these as much. We're using the headers and the footers in the view as opposed to using the default view property headers and footers. But they're there, and you can try those out. We just haven't used those very often. Now, one other option to keep in mind is you can print using multiple views. So you can actually have, down here you can see it says print multiple views. So you can actually create a print 1, a print 2, a print 3, and then you can string them all together, and you can give them orders. So in other words, the order in which the views appear here is the order in which they will print. Okay, so that, and you can add breaks in between them and so on. So there's quite a bit of functionality here. And you know what's weird is we don't actually use this because when we print, we use one view. We use one view and we put the page breaks right in the view. We want to have more control over the whole thing. It's easier to edit it on one view. But you can do this as well. I wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's get to the meat of this though, the pagination trick. How did we do it? So you can see down below here, first of all, let me scroll up again. So here's the form in the designer. And you can see, now here's the trick is, and I need to show this actually, I need to show you the data source as well. And I need to show you the rules. So let's see if I can get the rules up. Okay, so I got my rules. Now let's take a look at this form. Now take a look at this repeating section here. Do you see this? On the left, this says resolution section, right? And if I click on it again, you'll see that if I click on the innermost one, you'll see that I have a rule, a conditional formatting rule that is hiding the row, that's the row for the resolution node, if it's the first page and it's greater than 9. So what I've done here, and you can see this with my, my data source, is I've actually got a repeating node within a non-repeating best practice, right? You want to make sure you have your repeating groups nodes inside of a non-repeating parent. But that's all, that node, that whole repeating structure is within another repeating structure. And the benefit of this is that I can do paging this way. Now it does result in data that is slightly less normalized, but it's a great technique for paging. And in general, this technique works even with one repeater. But in this case, we've done it using this approach because what happens is when we click on this, so this internal section here, if I right-click on this and show you the repeating table properties, the display is set to, it doesn't allow people to insert. Okay, so basically it's automatically going to give me 9 items to begin with. And then it's going to basically, it's going to hide everything after 9 if it's page 1. But if it's page 2, it'll show me everything else. Now, how do I know what everything else is? So what we've done, and this is a little bit esoteric, we've gone in and we've added default values. So if we look at the work order field underneath resolution sections here, and there's our resolution section, there's our first repeater, and there's our second repeater. Notice that I have 30 rows. I've automatically added those 30 rows into my default data. So every single time I add one of these resolution notes 1, it's automatically going to add a 1 page worth of rows. So it's paralleling the print experience, right? When they add a new page, they got to add all rows. Same in the form. We basically just configure the data source to automatically add that many rows when they add another page. If they're less than 10, fine, they're on 1 page. If they go above the 1 page, they add it and they get 1 more page worth of notes, and then we paginate it. So how do we paginate it? So obviously the print view is what we want to look at the pagination. So on the print view, what we're doing, come on print view, is we have these 2 sections here. So if there's a page break right there, right in the middle, you can see where my mouse is. I've got a page break right there. And what I'm doing is I'm showing you everything on the first page here. Hide if page is not equal to 1, right? If the page is equal to 1, it shows it, and it shows only 9, right? Because that's all that can fit on page 1 with my header stuff there. On page 2, I basically have my header have the same repeating element here. And here what I'm doing, though, is I'm actually displaying everything. So because it's displaying everything, let's see if I can, it's slightly confusing, but basically what's happening is it's going to hide page 1 information, but other than that, it's going to print. So everything else is going to print. And then when it gets to the end, it's just going to paginate, and it's going to do it again. So I'll send this example with the webinar package, but you can see how we did that. And then you can also see there that at the end, if this is the end one at the bottom here, and very similar technique, but except this case we don't actually have the repeater at the bottom, so the section is not being hidden. So we always have at least 2. Well, not necessarily. I guess we could have 1, but here you can see with the signatures at the bottom. And then, of course, you have another page break, the general conditions, and the signatures are bound again at the bottom. So the same signature node here is bound in multiple places in the view, and that's how we accomplish this. Okay, so it's kind of complex, but I kind of waved my hands and explained a little bit of how I did this, and I can talk more about it at the end. But let's take a look at what the email was from the server now. Let's go back to my email here and see if I actually got email. I did. I got an email from my server, and it's automatically generating a PDF and sending it to me, and it's also sending an HTML view. And here's the PDF that we got back from the server. This is a nice looking PDF. Obviously, if I extend a little bit, if I make it 100%, it's going to look a little better. But you can see here that the checkboxes are not quite as good as Qt PDF, but everything else looks pretty good. There's no double lines or anything. So this is a good printing option as well. And the benefit of this option, let me go back to my slides. I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. So once again, with pagination, the pagination trick is needed for repeating data because of the fact that InfoPath doesn't know when to paginate. The way you do it is you add a repeater inside of a repeating parent, and then you turn off insert for the repeater inside. You create a second section on page 2 in your print view, and you add page breaks at the header and at the foot or the bottom, and you can limit the sections then to only print what's in those pages using the hide show formatting rule. Okay, so that's the quick kind of 10,000 foot level view of how you do pagination with repeaters. And like I said, take a look at the example when I send it out. The next thing I want to talk about is printing on submit. So what we want, I want to show you another example here of a form, and this is a form, the form I was just showing you. I'm going to preview this. This form actually will automatically pop up the print dialog when I try to print. And the benefit of this is if you want people to always to print out something before they send it, you can put the print on the submit. And so let's just fill this out again here. I'm just going to type in some dummy data and just show you that this dialog pops up. And obviously the dialog, I need to actually fill out the data before I can actually see the dialog there. And let's see, I need to fill in the signature. And actually, when you're previewing, don't preview from the print view. Okay, so obviously when you're previewing, it's going to preview the view that you're on, which is not what we want in that case, okay, because we don't have a submit on the print view. Okay, so going back to this form again here, so this is the view I really want. And this tells me also what's required to fill out the form. So I'm just going to fill this out very quickly here to show you that print technique when the submit button is pressed. And then I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so just signature. And now I have a submit button. So now when I click on this submit button, it's automatically going to pop up, it should pop up, a print dialog. Did you see that? It did pop up a print dialog. Where'd it go? I think it's in the background somewhere here. But hopefully you saw that. Let me try it again. Where am I here? That's in the background somewhere. I don't see it though. That's kind of weird. Okay, so anyway, most of you probably saw this, and you probably don't care about this anyway. So let me just take a look. Let me just show you how I did this. So with the print on demand here, what I've done is I've added a rule that will print it, and the printing is basically going to be using a command in QRules called print, and that's going to pop up the dialog. Now, the problem with this command is that you have to set your form to full trust because print is a non-secure command in the InfoPath object model. So what we've done here is we've automatically set this to full trust just for the purpose of this demo. You can do this. You can publish it to SharePoint. You can add a credential at the bottom, a code signing credential. You can get one from GoDaddy. So it's not hard to do, and if people are using the filler, it works just fine. If people are using the browser, obviously it doesn't work. So those are some limitations. So I just want to quickly cover that because that does come up quite a bit. And then lastly, I want to talk about this server-side generation of PDFs. So first of all, let me just show you these three different approaches. So we showed, this is a snippet, a screenshot of that first Microsoft approach. Slightly better with this is the hard copy. Actually, what I did is I took the form, printed it to my HP 7300 OfficeJet, scanned it in, and so it looks a little bit grainy, but it's better than what Microsoft XPS generated. And then here we have the actual acute PDF approach, and you can see here this has got nice check boxes here, but there's still a doubling line here. And then finally we have the server-side generated version, which looks almost as good as the acute PDF or even better, depending on how you like your check boxes and how you like your lines. So those are the three different techniques I've shown today. Now, on the server side, you may be wondering, well, how did we set this up? Okay, let me just quickly show you how we did this. So on the library settings here for our 365 site, we have installed our DBExcel app. It's not like Muhimbi. It's very different from Muhimbi. It runs in Azure, and it automatically generates it. You basically install this piece into Azure, and we help you with it. It takes an hour, and then you configure it to submit. So this is synchronizing all the forms in this library to our server in Azure. So this is what you use to configure the synchronization, okay? Synchronize your forms. Okay, now it automatically synchronizes them when it submits to Azure. Okay, so then on Azure side, we have an admin tool with PDF mappings. And the PDF mapping, so in the admin tool basically has a bunch of different form templates. We're managing these with InfoPath. We're actually moving away from this as our management UI. We're moving to the web. But here you can see I've got my render mappings here, And I'm going to basically show you the render mapping I just did for my form last night, and that is right here. So this render mapping tells the server-side pieces, I want a PDF, I want to render a PDF, I want to use the print view, I want you to generate it when it's submitted or when the document's modified, and I want you to send email to me from the webinars account, and so on. And there's lots of options here. You can make this dynamic, you can add attachments, and so on. And so this tells the server-side piece how to generate the PDF for the form that's coming in. It sees the form as a Qdabra webinar 201-0204. It sees a PDF mapping. It looks at the values in the PDF mapping, and then it generates a PDF based on that. And that PDF can be either stored on the server or archived to a SharePoint document library or to a file system. Okay, so that's how the server side worked. Now, any questions so far? I've got a few more minutes here. I'm going to show you this external approval thing, which I think is really cool. But let's just see if we have any questions. So Greg's got a question. If the text field is large, the print will cut off the last line. Right, so what you want to do with the text fields is you want to use calculated values, ideally limiting the size so that the print view doesn't cut it off. But obviously you're going to have to be careful when you do that. So the print view should be different from the regular view. You don't want to use things that can get cut off easily. Second question from Marlon, is the form overwriting the form on each submit? Well, that can be specified in the form. So the form logic will determine whether you overwrite or not. In my case, I've set it up to overwrite for this example, but you could set it up to automatically create a new version. Yeah, so yeah, there's definitely, you can do both options, Marlon. That's a great question. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about external submits. So I've got a really cool demo I want to show you. Basically, first of all, why would you want to do external approvals? Why would you want to do external submits? Well, maybe you don't want your users to have to authenticate. You just send them a link on their phones. They don't have to log in to 365 from their phones, which is a hassle, right? Maybe they've already logged in. It's not a hassle, but a lot of people don't want to have to go through the song and dance of having to re-log in. So the other reason would be because you want to basically allow people who are external to your organization to submit forms or to approve forms. So for example, timesheets. And then finally, to reduce your costs. So you might have some users that aren't very frequent, and you don't want to have to pay the $25 a month license fee for the Office 365. So maybe you just want to have them submit approvals once in a while. For those users, this makes sense. So let's do the quick demo. I've demoed this form quite a bit in the past. I'm just going to quickly jump to my other IE window here where I have my leave requests. And you can see here I've got two leave requests. We talk about leave requests a lot. It's a very popular topic, and we've done this leave request form webinar in the past. If you look at our webinar logs, you'll see we did it last September as well as August. So this form is actually fine-tuned to show in the on the phone, and this form is using Forms Viewer, which is our replacement for InfoPath. So you can see it's fast to load, and basically it's very feature-rich. It supports all of the stuff that you'd expect. Now, because this is the mobile, we don't want to have a date picker. We want people to be able to just use their iPhone to fill out the days off. And because it's we've made this, they can type in how much time it is because they might like take half a day, maybe they're part-time or something. We don't want to. And this form obviously needs a little bit of improvement. You can see I've got some layout issues, but I haven't really. Okay, so we're going to submit this. Hello, vacation. And the real interesting thing, though, is the next step. So this submits, and there it is. You see I just submitted it. And there's a workflow. Now, what is the workflow doing? So the workflow on this library is actually going to submit an email to the manager. Hopefully I got the right manager. And you can see we're creating these links. So I've got my typical approve links. I've done this demo before, right? So you've got the approve and reject links, but we also added this approve request externally link. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like in a second, but first I have to log out at 365, right? Just to show you, to prove to you that this truly is external. And I'm going to do that, log out, and then there we are. Just to verify that I'm totally logged out, I'm going to punch IE again and try to log into that site and show you that I can't do it. I'm not logged in. I can log in if I wanted to, but I just want to show you that I can't do it. There's a SharePoint site, and I'm not logged in. Okay, great. So now, let's see if I got my email. And there it is. And I got two, because I'm the submitter and the approver. I got the mail saying you just submitted it. There it is. You can look at your leave request. I have to be signed in to look at that. And then I've got this manager approval email. So if I click on this link and all goes well, I'll be able to approve it. Now, for those of you who are paying really good attention, you'll remember how many hours I had available. I had 16, right? Or I'd used 16. I requested an additional 8. Okay, so that looks like it worked externally. So let's log back into the site, and let's see if my vacation was uploaded or was updated. Too early in the morning for me. Can't even talk right. Okay, so logging in, going to my HR site, going to check out my leave request. I'm actually just going to go for another leave request because it'll tell me what my balance is. Okay, so here's my HR site, leave requests, and new. Once again, this is all using Form 0, right? There's no InfoPath Form services involved. So we've got a lot of users of Form 0 now. We're really looking forward to the adoption curve. And obviously, for most of you, InfoPath Form services is still just fine. But for the future, we want to have something that provides future proofing of your form investment. Okay, so there you see it. It was approved correctly. My hours used was updated to 20, and that's basically the demo. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's see, any other questions before we sign off? This webinar will be put on YouTube at the end of the day. We put all of our webinars up on YouTube, and really love to have you here every week. Thank you for being here. If you have any other questions for me, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, catch you next week. Hope you have a great day. Take care.